appreciate it. I had the privilege of meeting Eddie a little over 2 years ago right here in Charlotte. He is absolutely the premier note guy. He's been doing this for over 35 years, and you heard me talk a little bit about what I'm doing with the Veterans Initiatives. I say that, at least in my real estate career, all roads go back to Eddie. I would not be doing what I'm doing now if it wasn't for Eddie. All of the investments that I put in with the veterans right now were funded by self-directed IRAs, about 80 to 90% of them. The other 10% are cash investors, but they're all created in the vehicle of notes, not selling the real estate, creating notes from it. I have bought non-performing notes. I have bought reperforming notes from Florida to Maryland, and without Eddie's education, I wouldn't have non-performing notes that are now performing notes. And I'm not going to keep talking. Eddie is the guy. The information that you're going to get is just a tidbit of what is at your disposal. He has a network of experts across the nation, and the relationships and the networking that I've gotten from those organizations. I have investors from Tucson to Kansas to Orlando to Virginia that I would not have met without Eddie and his great mentorship. So without further ado, please welcome Eddie Speed.
Thanks, Lance. All right, I think I got one here. Hello, everybody. I'm glad you're here. I really appreciate that. I know several of you because I've been to Charlotte and spoke many times, and I've got some long-term students that are in the audience tonight, and I appreciate all you guys coming and supporting us. So let's get started. We have, first of all, let me tell you a little bit about what my purpose is here tonight, okay? So my purpose here tonight is not just to show you how that you can enter the note business on a very part-time basis. Bolt on the note business to your existing real estate business, and that be it. Eddie, can you earn a full-time living on a part-time basis? Yes. You can keep your day job, keep your real estate investing, and bolt on the note business to it, and the income potential is, we'll talk about tonight. It's phenomenal. But I got a bigger purpose here tonight. Let me ask you a question. If you could make all the money that you needed in 9 months out of the year, would you be willing to spend 3 months out of the year betting on your future, building your retirement, building wealth? I'm just asking you, would you be willing to do that? Well, my purpose here tonight is to show you how you can do that. Before we leave here tonight, I'm going to show you how you can take a very, very small amount of money in a self-directed retirement account and turn it into a huge amount of money. In fact, I'm going to show you how to take $100 and turn it into $100,000 tax-free. So there's a lot of techniques with notes that's unlike real estate. As you heard Ken say, it's just when somebody pulls back the curtains and shows you this business, you're going to go, wow. And you're going to find out, particularly on Saturday when you come, how to change a lot of your current real estate investing techniques involving using note strategies on properties that you're already dealing with, okay? All right, so a lot of you are going to have questions. I realize that. I only have about 120 slides to get through in about 90 minutes, okay? So I'm just going to say to you right now, if we can make a deal, I will answer questions at the end. If you'll let me get back there to the sign-up table, I'll go back to the sign-up table and answer questions at the end. But I'm going to ask you to hold your questions because, trust me, it will be midnight if I don't. And this is sort of a story. I'm just going to kind of unveil a story. And then Saturday, we'll unveil a story. And as you come to these 3-day classes that we have, it's part of your kind of building this thought process and how all this works. So we'll answer questions in the back of the room at the end. And then the other thing I'm going to say to you is stay till the end, because I will tell you that there is a lot of different topics that we're going to cover over this hour and a half, and you're not going to want to miss all that we're going to say about that. So core things that we're going to talk about: understanding the discount note business and how that works. And what I think that we've worked really hard at as part of Note School is to make people understand how to do this business and apply this business with very simple techniques, and techniques that a lot of which you're already familiar with. And we're going to talk a little bit about that tonight and how that can work. So, an unprecedented market opportunity. Inventory's down. Foreclosures are down. But inventory of defaulted notes is up. Unprecedented market opportunity. Greatest market opportunity that I've ever seen in the note space since I started doing this full-time in 1980. So we're going to talk about how notes are priced and why you would pursue buying notes, and essentially a simple reason why you would chase defaulted notes versus property is the notes are going to be about half of the price of the property. Pretty good incentive to go figure that out. So we're going to talk about how notes are priced. And one of the things that you're going to talk about, and Ken alluded to this tonight, as you progress in the note space, I'm going to teach you how to do this where you hire basically a power team to do things for you. So I'm going to give you a little bit of a sliver of that tonight. And as you progress in this training, the one thing that I'm going to say to you is, I don't have to be an attorney to own a note and hire an attorney. Do you get the concept? And so there's a lot of things about this business that if I hire out the right talent, I don't have to physically go do it all myself. And so those are critical aspects of the business, and we'll cover a little bit of that tonight. So I've been buying notes. I started when I was 20 years old in 1980 buying discounted notes. And just to raise your hand, how many of you have ever owned a note? Just so I can get a sense of the audience. Okay, so a good many of you, 15, 20 people. Raise your hand again just so we all see you. All of these people have owned a note. Now, I'm going to ask you one more time. Has anybody that did not raise their hand ever owned a note? There's JC. So some of you just aren't going to vote like JC. Has anybody else other than JC ever owned a note and you just didn't tell us about it? What's a note? That's a note. That's a note. That's a note on a car, and that's a note on a house. How many of you have ever owned a note? So one of the things that you're going to find that we have done as part of what we have developed in training is we've made things to where you can understand them. Because a lot of people say, I can understand fix and flips and I can understand rentals, but I can't understand the paper business, the note business. And the answer is, yes, you can. You haven't had anybody explain it to you correctly. Because everybody in this room has owned a note. Now let's go back to the fact that we buy mortgage notes, and we buy mortgage notes at a discount. Okay, so I'm going to give you a quick little analogy of how a discounted mortgage note works, okay? So what's a note? One of the things that's a note is what? A check. If I make that check out to John Doe for $1,000 and I sign that check, what does John Doe own? A note. Everybody agree with that? John Doe owns a note. So if I give that check to John Doe, $1,000, oops, he doesn't have a checking account. Now what are we going to do? What's he going to do with it? My bank, if you go to Chase or B of A or any of those corporate offices, they're over here in Charlotte, North Carolina, they're not going to let you go into my bank and cash your check, right? For no fee. The big bank's not going to let you do it. Okay? So I can go to a check cashing service. Hold back. Don't say it. I know you're tempted. I can take it to the check cashing service and I can get cash for my check. Whoops. Don't say it. It's not a fee. That's a misnomer. It is not a fee. When John Doe gets cash for his check, $850 for his $1,000 check, John Doe sells his note at a discount. I buy discounted notes. Let me ask you a question. What if the check cashing service paid $50 for that check? Is that legal? How much does Eddie owe? How much does Eddie owe? Who buys that note at whatever price is irrelevant. They bought the right to receive a $1,000 promise to pay. That is a discounted note. Now, we buy loans secured by real estate. So here's a pretty simple real estate kind of a trail of events. Buyer conveys ownership to the seller conveys ownership to the buyer via a deed, a bill of sale of real estate. Now, if the buyer doesn't have all cash, what does he do? The buyer signs a note and gives it to the bank. Who holds the note? So let's pretend that note was $100,000. And the bank was willing to sell, and the buyer, like me, was willing to buy. Could I buy that note for $50,000? Could I? How much does the borrower owe? That's a discounted real estate secured loan. That's what I do. I buy real estate secured notes at a discount. And there is the biggest pile of distressed notes that there's ever been in the history of America. And they are reeling these babies out right now at lightning speed. In fact, specifically, they've pushed out $7 billion in non-performing note tapes already this year, according to the press. So on Saturday, I'm going to go show you this tape and this tape and this tape. I'm not going to spend all that time tonight. If you want to do your own Google research, you can do just like us and figure it out. But the bottom line is, what broke the dikes and forced the government and the banks to sell these assets was the municipalities. Because what was the municipalities' problems? Blighted properties aren't paying what? They ain't paying city services. They're not paying water bills and sewer bills. Costs more money to have the police department cover vacant houses than it does occupied houses. So you're not going to read this in the Wall Street Journal, but the reality is the deal has been made with the top 50 banks in Washington, and they've agreed we're going to dump these assets not as REO properties, not as bank foreclosed properties, but as what? Defaulted notes. That's what we're doing here. And I couldn't have written a script better than the real story that the government and the top 50 banks wrote for us in the last 5 years. Now, I'm here in Charlotte, and Charlotte is a banking center, big-time banking center, right? Now, right up the road is the capital of the United States, okay? And they've been firing cannons at each other in emails, not real cannons. But they've been communicating with each other for about 5 years, and they've been in a big argument about this. What are we going to do with these defaulted notes? And what the result of that is the municipalities basically said, Mr. President, you're killing us. Our cities, our counties, our taxing authorities, our water companies are going broke because of so much shadow inventory. In fact, it was on Nightline less than a month ago called Zombie Houses. So this story over and over and over has been lurking in the market. Now the top 50 banks, some of which are based here, and Washington, who are very diverse in a lot of their beliefs, let's just say that. The top 50 banks in Washington, they don't want any of us to know the level of inventory of notes that are out there. In fact, they kind of lead us to believe all the sins of subprime lending went away, the mortgage meltdown is gone, and now we've washed our hands of it and we're done. What they have failed to address is this phenomenal inventory of loans that are sitting out there. How many of you know where a house is vacant and dark and don't know who the heck bought it? Everybody's seen that house. estate in the last 5 years because 50% of everybody that made a mortgage application were turned down. Reperforming notes are loans that had a blip, weren't paying, have modified, and now paying again successfully. We're not talking about HAMP and HARP loans, which had a ridiculous redefault rate of over 50%. But we're talking about hedge funds that bought these loans and got skin in the game and got these customers paying again, and those loans can also be bought at a discount. And then obviously we have non-performing notes. The average delinquency of a non-performing note we buy is, what is it, Ken? 3 years?
Somewhere between 3 and 4.
That's about right. The customer has been dark and hadn't made a payment in 3 to 4 years. So, seller finance notes can be bought at a discount, and they're in the performing note bucket. Reperforming notes were in default. Now they've modified and they're paying again, and they're in the performing bucket, and non-performing notes are still in the non-performing bucket. Obviously, we don't pay the same price for non-performing that we do for performing. So what do we pay? What do these assets cost? Okay? Reperforming and non-performing notes cost 70 to 90 cents on the dollar. You can easily earn a double-digit return with a very safe passive investment buying performing notes. And I would tell you that more IRA administration companies are chasing me like I'm the prettiest girl that could go to the prom, because they are sitting on about 1/3, that industry is sitting on about 1/3 of all the money that is already self-directed in a retirement account is sitting in what? Cash. Uninvested funds. And so that industry has woke up and said, oh man, we got to show our people how to go buy alternative investments other than real estate and private lending when that inventory is shrunk a lot from where it was, and notes has a massive inventory. So I do a ton of training with self-directed retirement account companies because of this very specific market fact. Non-performing notes. These are loans that are paying every month as agreed, and these notes, the non-performing notes, are not paying as agreed. They're in default, and they are paying zero every month. Now, why would you buy a loan that isn't paying? Huh? Because this loan is bought at a deep discount with the hope of getting them to pay or the hope of getting them to deed it to us, but plenty of economics to go through a foreclosure process and repossess the property. It's a backdoor way to buy real estate, although there's other good things that can happen in the interim. So we're going to focus on non-performing notes first. In this room, how many of you were buying property as late as 5 years ago and before? How many of you have been doing it at least 5 years? Okay? So for the last 5 years, if you've been driving down the Opportunity Highway, you've been going left at this fork buying REO properties. And you should have been, because real estate was on sale. It's not hard for somebody to say to me, Eddie, I started buying these properties 4 years ago, 3 years ago, and man, was that a great decision. Because I've had a big lift in values, and occupancy's gone up. Man, this real estate is good. But the reason that real estate story is so good is because there was an abundant supply of property at a low price. In fact, specifically, 5 million houses sold in a 5-year period, about 1 million houses a year. Okay? So in that process, that was the biggest dump in real estate opportunities we've ever seen. So, with a big inventory in non-performing notes, herein lies our next biggest frontier. So as we said, there's about 9 million defaulted notes and about 300,000 bank foreclosed properties. And so you're saying, is the inventory really 30 to 1? And the answer is yes. And it's been a pent-up inventory that, let me ask you a question. How many of you have ever seen something in life that you saw and you saw a glimmer of it, and you look back 5 years later and it was the mother lode? Right? Have any of you ever seen something like that? Buying Apple stock, buying REO properties 5 years ago, whatever it was, how many of you have seen something that 5 years ago it was an idea and it turned into a crazy story that's the one you'll tell your grandkids about? With 1,000% integrity, I believe in all my heart the next story is going to be what I'm talking about tonight. You just can't deny the numbers. You've got a crazy inventory imbalance that is going to get dumped out as non-performing notes. You just can't deny the numbers. So, non-performing notes, we said these assets trade at about 20 to 50 cents on the dollar. So a defaulted note trades at about 20 to 50% of what the customer owes. Now, how do you figure out what to pay? So, first of all, when you buy this note, you got a defaulted note, there's really about three things you can do with the customer. First is you can modify the customer and get them paying again. The government passed this program back in the TARP days of 2008. They passed this program that expires December 31st, 2017. It is what very, very, very few people know about, and this program is to help working class families bring their delinquent mortgage current. It's called Hardest Hit Funds. How many of you have heard of it? Well, that's great. We've got 3 people in the room that have heard of it. And by the way, you are in the hardest hit fund states. There's only 16 left, and you are a grand prize winner. And if you go read all the press about hardest hit funds, they are under an incredible amount of scrutiny because they haven't put the money out. And they got 2 years, 3 years maybe, of 10 years to get all the money out because they're still holding about 70% of all the money that was designated for hardest hit funds. So if you buy a delinquent note and you buy that note for 20 cents on the dollar, the borrower gets hardest hit funds, the government pays the customer enough money to bring their loan current. In most cases, it's more than it took to buy the note. And you still have a note on their property. Now it's just current. So, one of the things, Wendy, I'm teaching about at the IMN conference, which you know is a very sophisticated conference, is hardest hit funds. Because I can tell you that I speak to very sophisticated audiences on a regular basis, and your percentage in the room is just normal. 3 to 5% of a room every time has heard of hardest hit funds, meaning 95% of the room goes, I didn't even know they existed. So this is the greatest window of opportunity. It is targeted for low-income families in certain states. There's 16 states left, predominantly circled up. The assets that we buy are in the Rust Belt in the southeast, and North Carolina is right in the middle of them. You can get a deed in lieu of foreclosures. The mortgage companies, the servicing companies didn't do a good job of getting deed in lieu of foreclosures, and I think they were financially motivated not to. Because the truth of the matter is, short sales were a lot more profitable for them. They just were a lot of brain damage for everybody else. Let me tell you something. If I got a customer that wants to walk away from this deal with dignity, I just get them to deed it over to me. I own the house, and I don't bother them anymore. That's a fix. And in every workout strategy we've ever done in my whole career doing this, we commonly did deed and lose, and I have no idea why the servicing companies or the banks didn't figure this out, but it's not brain surgery, right? If I own this loan, I'm going to instruct my servicer to try to reach a settlement with the customer. I may give them some cash for keys. I may give them money to go move out and make a deposit on an apartment. I'm going to do something, and I'm going to try to avoid having to go through the foreclosure process. Now, the assets that I buy, I have the legal right to foreclose. So we have a filtering process to make sure that I'm not buying something with nasty title issues that says I can't foreclose. The assets that we're teaching you to buy, you have the absolute legal right to repossess the property in what we refer to as a foreclosure. So if I can't get a deed, if I can't modify the customer, I'm back to a deed in lieu or foreclose. What business am I back in? I'm back in the real estate business, and the reason I'm in the real estate business in this manner is the property is going to be about half the price I would normally have to pay. That's why you do it. Okay, so there's really three things that can happen: modify, deed in lieu, or foreclose. And what I got to understand is that my business is so simple because all I am is a pawn shop for real estate. How many of you have seen that show on the History Channel about the family that owns the pawn shop out in Las Vegas? Okay, what does the old man do anyway? Huh? The guy that really owns it is the son, Rick. The old man doesn't really own it. I've seen Rick on several TV shows, and Rick laughs and says, they make me look like a cool guy with my shaved head, my sunglasses, my jacked up pickup truck. But he said, the truth of the matter is I'm a research nerd. He said, so people brought me all this weird stuff, and I figured out if it was priceable and what price to price it at. And he said, and that's what I built the business around. Is Rick a smart guy? What makes Rick smart? Huh? Rick is very good at evaluating the as-is value for unique collateral. And that's what I do. I evaluate the as-is value for unique collateral. And what I pay for a note has nothing to do with what the borrower owes or what my legal right is to collect back. Because I buy notes at deep discounts at way less than what the borrower owes. So here's a pretty easy philosophical way of showing it to you. Established value of the property is from the roof to the foundation, right? We're going to say that's whatever number that is. And we buy that note at a percentage of the value of the property. Now, this is a core principle. So those of you who are writing things down, here's your core principle. It is called investment to value ratio. The investment we pay for the note compared to the value of the property. It's not loan to value. It's what you invest in the note compared to the value of the property. Investment to value ratio. Now, this scale is going to move down or up depending on whether I'm buying performing or non-performing, and let's just be fair about it, how much hair the deal's got on it. And there's going to be times that I wouldn't put a dime in that deal. I'll pass. So I'm not saying I buy every non-performing note. I'm just saying to you there's a big enough pile of non-performing notes that I can buy at a good price that there is a huge amount of opportunity in the deal. Some of them, the property is not worth fixing up. The tax has already lost to taxes. There's some goofy, crazy title problems that I might could legally fix, but I probably don't want to fool with it. I say there's three reasons that you would not want to buy a non-performing note. Blighted property, tax, and title. Blighted property, tax, and title. Those are the three reasons that you could make a bad buy in buying non-performing notes. Now, guess what we teach at Note School? Take a wild guess. How to evaluate blighted property, tax, and title. Okay, so here is the way that distressed assets have been disseminated in the marketplace since the subprime debacle blew up. Okay? And what's happened is this represents the price band of the value of the property and the percentage of the collateral value that these assets are traded for in the secondary market. So the higher priced band houses that are in the form of non-performing notes, honestly, they're trading for a lot of money. In fact, our calculator won't work well at these percentages. What the hedge funds that buy these massive packages of notes do not want to keep are assets that the house is worth less than $125,000. So Blackstone, Carrington, the Colony, Waterfall, Roosevelt, there's about 16 capital firms, all can write a check for $1 billion that buy these assets, but the low price band, they only buy it at a salvage price, knowing they're going to immediately resell it, and I'm the guy raising my hand. And the reason I'm raising my hand is because these assets trade at 20 to 50 cents on the dollar. So I buy low price band. Now, you're saying, Eddie, I've seen some, listen, there's ugly in some of this stuff. And you wouldn't touch it, and I wouldn't touch it. But let me tell you something. I'm going to melt way down to a number. We believe there's 2.5 million defaulted notes in this price band that are solid, viable assets. 2.5 million assets. In the biggest mother lode of REO property that we've ever seen in our lifetime, they only sold 5 million houses in 5 years. You can't wrap your mind around how much inventory this is. And that's even me skunking all the stuff that I say, hey, I agree with you, it's blighted, it's lost to taxes, they got a screwed up chattel chain, all the ugly. I've already dumped that off in the Grand Canyon. I believe our pile looks like about 2.5 million assets. So I buy the lowest price band because by far it is the best buy. And to tell you this, the big hedge funds are going to buy most of this bigger price band assets, and they're going to pay prices that you and I can't wrap our mind around. And we've seen them do it with rental properties, and they're doing it with this. And the reason they are is because they have pent-up cash they need to invest, and they're not going to invest it in the stock market. So in the low price band space, we start out at about 50% and go down to about 20%. So we have an as-is value of the property, and this is what we're paying in this price range for these assets. Okay? So I've got non-performing notes on one side and REO on the other. REO trading at about 80 to 90% average overall. Some markets are a little cheaper than this, some markets are a little pricier than this. I've done real estate investment groups in Detroit, in Toledo, in St. Louis. All of those were top 5 markets of availability of properties in the last 2 years, all of which are screaming right now, Wendy, about what? Inventory. And and do you want to know why? It's because these low price band assets are getting pushed out doing what? Selling as defaulted notes. Defaulted notes are trading at about this price. So the reason I like this business is I can be into a property for this, or I can be into it for this. I just like being into it for less. Okay. So I've kind of described an industry to you at this point. Why the market is what it is, and how you're going to buy them and kind of what you're going to pay. So let's quickly go through a little waterfall here, okay? Just a whole sequence of what happens in the business. A buyer buys a house, they get the keys to the house, and they sign a note. Over time, they pay the bank for the loan, and if they pay as agreed, what is the grand prize? They get a free and clear deed to the house. They own it with no mortgage. We'll call that a successful loan. The loans that don't pay as agreed, they get dumped into a bucket that gets sold in bulk, predominantly to big investment firms. Some of those loans in that firm, that hedge fund is not going to keep. They're going to sell those assets. If the house is worth less than $125,000, they're going to sell them to a specialty group that buys those kind of assets. So those assets get traded off in a group of loans. It's just a spreadsheet of these loans, just an Excel spreadsheet. The industry refers to that as a tape. It's just a spreadsheet, that's all it is. There's nothing magic about I got a tape. So those assets that are traded as little as one investor at a time. So our specialty is teaching people how to, their real estate investors, how to add buying notes to their business as little as one note at a time. Now I'm going to steal a little bit of my thunder from Saturday. You're going to say, how many dollars do these notes cost? A typical note in your market is going to cost about $20,000. So a non-performing note is going to cost about $20,000. Some are going to be cheaper. Ken, I'm sure you bought assets for less than 20 grand, but that's about average. All the assets you bought have been less than 20? Yeah, I don't want to they're not ready to wrap their mind around that yet because they don't know how to use, let me tell you, by Saturday afternoon, we're going to take our fingers and we're going to undo our tool belt and we're going to lay them on the desk. And we're going to learn to make money with a pencil and not a hammer. I'm going to get you to stop thinking like a rehabber. I'm going to get you to start thinking like a business owner. But wait till Saturday. So you can keep your tool belt on right now because I know you really love it. But I can assure you that you can learn to do this business where you hire out the things that you don't want to physically do till you go pursue the things that you want to pursue. So in due diligence, you agree upon a price, then you're going to wire the money to the hedge fund and you're going to get the notes. Now, all of this box, I can show you a vendor to do anything you want to have done that you don't want to do. Anything that you don't want to deal with, I'll promise you, I can show you a vendor that handles these things. Because they just have done all of this work for all of this REO and all these banks, and there's a pile of vendors that were not available when I started the business in 1980. They're totally available today to help me outsource the things that I don't want to do. So I can modify the loan, deed in lieu, or foreclose. If I modify the loan, what happens? I bought a note at a deep discount and they start making their payments again and I got cash flow. So I have a low investment cost in a note that starts cash flowing and I can show you several exit strategies to sell this note. If I got a deed in lieu or foreclose, I can rent it, rent to own, or owner finance it. On Saturday, I'm going to show you a technique that nobody else has ever taught you. And it is the smartest way to sell a house for less than $75,000. I'm going to sell it to an out-of-town investor who's already bought similar houses like this, and he's going to buy it from me with owner financing for 120 to 140% of what the realtor thinks it's worth, and he's going to pay me half down. Okay? So I'm going to show you a very effective structuring technique that is a game changer in how to sell working class real estate. Loaded cash flow rentals to California investors. Wow, now I've got my own little hedge fund. So I'm going to show you how to take one deal at a time and operate like you're a hedge fund. That is the second technique that I'm teaching at the IMN conference. So I'm going to show you how to do that on Saturday. And all of these combination of things is the maximum way to not sell the house. Most houses under $70,000, what you're looking at in MLS, the multiple listing service, is simply a wholesale price for real estate. It is not a retail price. I'm going to show you how to get retail. So the reason is because all of these houses that sell for $50,000 and $60,000 and $70,000, tell me what the makeup of the comps is. What's the comps? REO cash sales. So it is just like the auto auction for real estate. It doesn't represent retail, it represents wholesale. So I'm going to show you a retail technique that after buying 30,000 seller finance notes, I believe that this is the best technique in the business. Now, this ain't your daddy's old Oldsmobile, okay? We're not talking about selling to a guy with 500 down and a 500 credit score and crossing your fingers for the next several years hoping he'll continue to pay. That ain't what we're talking about. We're talking about selling to an investor with an 800 credit score and 50% of the sales price of the property comes in the form of a down payment. So I don't have time to go into that tonight except to say this is called a hook. to make sure that you come on Saturday, because everybody in the world knows you'd be foolish not to come learn this. Am I right? Can I get an amen? How? JC, got to get a bigger room. Also, you can sell the property in an as-is condition, and there's times, obviously, when we buy a defaulted note, sometimes we're just going to dump it. And we're going to talk about dump techniques, and we usually sell those to local investors. So we're going to talk a lot about seller financing and how that works. Now we're going to talk about performing notes, okay? So performing notes, we said trade for in the marketplace about 70 to 90% of the value of the note. And I would tell you that the technique that I'm going to teach you right now is my secret sauce. It is my formula for retiring tax-free forever. And I'm going to use it with a huge levering mechanism. So let me tell you what you can do. You can take a very small amount of money and you can put that money in a Roth IRA account, and you can then control a note that's 1,000 times bigger than the money you put up, and you can control that whole transaction for a very small amount of money. And this is my secret sauce. I'm in a mastermind with Wendy. That's how I know Wendy so well. I'm in a mastermind with Wendy at about top 85 real estate investors in the United States. It's quite expensive to be a member of this group, and there's some very sophisticated investors coast to coast. And Wendy knows my wife really well because they're one of the few girls that all pile up and go to this group. And one of the things that Wendy knows is a fact that my wife Martha spends 100% of her time in this business doing this technique that I'm teaching. So I am telling you with 1,000% integrity, this is my secret sauce. The technique that I'm going to show you is, of all the note tricks that I've seen, this is the best. Are you ready for it? Does anybody need to leave? Just checking. So a typical little transaction would look like this. This is a house somewhere in rural America. House is worth $56,000. There's a remaining mortgage on it for $34,616. The interest rate on the note is 9%. $374 a month is the payment. There's $158 remaining. This is what is commonly referred to as a seller finance land contract. And there are hundreds of thousands of these assets available in the market. And my executive team has bought more seller financing than anybody in the United States. We've bought over $2.5 billion worth of seller financing if you looked at company-wide, our executive team. So this has been our space. We totally get this. We have a lot of experience with it. And I'm just giving you a sense of what a typical deal can look like. On Saturday, we'll drill down deeper into different deals. A student bought this note for us for $31,233. So every month, for their $31,233 investment, they get a check in the mailbox of $375 a month. Eddie, are you telling me that buying a performing note is like buying a rent house without tenants and toilets? Yes. And so over 158 months, they're going to pay back about twice what the student paid. And if I plug this in my financial calculator, it will tell me that per year, I'm earning 11% on my dollars invested. Now, I was doing pretty good up until that last little saying. And then all of a sudden, some of you disconnected with me. I felt it. So let me draw an analysis of how yield works. Okay? How many of you are familiar with what is referred to as a hard money loan? Ha! A hard money lender makes a private loan at a higher rate than the banks charge, but more flexible terms and much more flexible underwriting. Okay? So a private lender is what has mobilized people buying distressed real estate. If it weren't for private lending, buying distressed real estate would be a completely different world. So they provided capital to go buy property. If that hard money lender made a loan for $31,233 and the terms were $375 a month and they gave you 158 months to pay it back, my question to you is, what would the interest rate on the note be? $11%. That's what my investor paid for the note. That's what the payment was, and that is how long it paid back. So the investor, because they bought the note at a discount, earned a higher return than the interest rate on the note. And if you just backed into it, it would be the exact same math as a hard money loan. Does that make sense to you? We're going to talk about some other terrific advantages in this, but let's talk about safety for a second. $56,000 what the house is worth. The investor pays $31,500. So they're at about 60% of the value of the property. They don't want anything to go bad, but if it did, it could. There is an inordinate supply of these types of notes. I believe there's 250,000 notes like this available in the market today, and there is a very limited number of investors that get it and understand it and pursue it. Therein lies a terrific opportunity for us. These loans are third-party serviced, so the collection of the payments, the taxes, the license, the borrower workout, all that is not done by necessarily who owns the note, but by who? The servicer. So I have to make executive decisions to instruct my servicer of what they want them to do, but they go have the machine that does all the work. So it's like, think in terms of like me hiring the boy that mows the yard. Now when he goes and mows the yard at my rent house, I'm going to give him some very specific instructions. He's going to mow the grass and he's going to do all the sweating. He's going to verify that he did the work, and then I'm going to pay him. And that's exactly how our business works. You have to have some knowledge to understand what is expected of the decisions you're going to have to make, but you're not going to have to go push the lawnmower. And it's very critical because outsourcing is how you operate and run your own little bank. Okay, so every month, payment's going to go to the servicer. They're going to charge kind of an upfront fee of about $150 one time, and then they're going to charge a small servicing fee every month, and they're just going to wire the money into the investor's account. This is why the IRA administration companies love what we do, because we show people how to be their own little bank instead of having a rent house on a small investment. Okay? And this is a beautiful opportunity for people to have self-directed retirement accounts. About $35 billion is in cash today at self-directed retirement account companies, dry cash, uninvested funds. So there is a lot to be said about how you can find a passive investor to bankroll your business. Now remember that part where I told you I was going to show you how to take a very small amount of money and turn it into a lot of money? This is how we're going to do it. I'm going to take my little Roth piggy bank and I'm going to put $100 in it. Now, yesterday was a sad day for me. It is not fair. I'm going to tell you something. It is not fair. Because I kill myself to do this business, and the percentage of my income that I have to pay to the government and me see what they do with it, I don't like it. So I'm going to tell you something. I have no intentions of supporting the government plans for the rest of my life. And the government has provided an opportunity for me not to have to do that. And it's called a Roth retirement account. And it's as simple as this. I pay the taxes up front, and I will never have to pay taxes on the income. And the magic potion is, if you can develop a business technique that allows you for phenomenal leveraging, you have got the mother lode in not paying taxes. And I'm not going to tell you what the number is, but I will tell you there was a tear that hit my desk yesterday when I signed that check, because it was ugly. And I do not want to do that for the rest of my life. And I am absolutely, totally being serious with you about that. Some of this stuff I say, I'm kind of being a little entertaining with you. I'm not being entertaining about this. This is absolutely a technique that every investor has the right to do. I'm going to turn that money into $100,000+, and the magic is tax-free. Never again to pay taxes on all the wealth. All right, so here you go. The house sells for $110,000 with $10,000 down. That's the buyer's equity. And there's a loan on the house for $100,000. That's the buyer's debt. Okay, so everybody kind of got the structure of the deal. I'm using nice round numbers tonight because I'm going to start out slow, and then as you progress in training, I'm going to put several wrinkles to it. So I'm going to just use nice round numbers. We got a $100,000 loan, 10% interest, $878 a month, and it's payable over 30 years. So this is a straight 30-year, 10% note, typical seller finance type transaction. Okay, as you progress, I'll have lots of real case studies so you can see what different deals look like, but this is the best way I've learned to do it. I buy this note for 70 cents on the dollar. So every month, for my $70,000 investment, what do I get back? Mailbox money, right? $878 a month over the life of 360 months, pays back $316,080 for $70 invested. So if I use my same little calculator formula, I can run it through there, and it says my annual return is just under 15%, 14.8. And I can go through a lot of case studies to say this is normal, this is abnormal. What I'm showing you tonight is normal and doable. So I buy this note, it's $100,000. I buy it at a discount, and on paper, I do it in my Roth IRA. Now, I'm going to tell you a little secret. I don't have $70,000 in my Roth account in this little story. I only have $100. Okay? So I don't think I've got to have $70,000 in my Roth account to make this happen. I'm going to find myself what I will refer to as a financial friend. And I'm going to show you how to use a powerful leveraging technique with a financial friend. And he really is going to be your friend because he has anxious money sitting on the sidelines, probably in a retirement account as well, that he doesn't have invested in anything, and he sure doesn't have it in a safe investment that's earning a double-digit return. So I buy this note on paper, not with real cash yet, because we hadn't got to dispersing the money, for $30,000 discount, and that means that I'm earning a 14.8% return. The interest rate on the note is 10%. I earn this additional discount because I bought the note for less than what's owed, and that's what takes my return to this. So I buy this note. Remember we said if I did a hard money loan at $70,000, that's what I paid for it? The interest rate on the note would be 14.8. We'll keep doing this and saying it enough, it'll start resonating with you, and you can start really learning to analyze how to carve deals up. This is my favorite part of the presentation. If I had a pizza shop and it cost me $6 to make that pizza, how could I make a profit? Well, one way would be what? I could sell the pizza for more than $6. So if I sold that pizza for $10 or $12, I'm making a profit. How about 2? So if I busted that pizza up and sold it for $2 a slice, how much do I have invested in the back half of that pizza? If I can do it with a pizza, I can do it with a note. So I buy the whole stream of payments, 30 years, and I sell or flip off the front part of this note, and I own these back payments for free. Well, the IRS says I have to write a check for $100. The IRS says I have to make an investment with my retirement account. And what is generally accepted an investment is $100. Minimum investment you can do in a retirement account model. So I know that the first payments are way more valuable than the back payments. Everybody agree with that? Everybody in this room would rather have $1,000 here and here and here than $1,000 back there at the back. So we all get that these payments are way more valuable. And we spend a little more time on Saturday. I'm going to show you percentage-wise how much more valuable. This is way more valuable, 10 times more valuable. So I buy this whole note, I flip off this part, and I keep this part in my Roth IRA account. In fact, specifically, I sell 132 payments of these payments for $69,900. My investor gets a 10% return on his investment, and my Roth IRA gets the back 228 payments of this for $100. And you don't need a calculator to figure the yield. It's enough. That is a deal architecting technique. Now, I'm just going to ask you a question. If a real estate investor understood as much about how to structure deals as they did about sticks and bricks, is it possible they could double their profit? I'm just asking you. Because that's what I teach people. I teach people how to structure deals related to real estate, but how to finagle it in a way to make more money. On Saturday, I'm going to take this model. I'm going to take everything we've talked about today, and I'm going to do a significant drill down. I'm going to introduce 2 or 3 ideas that I have not introduced to you yet, because I love teaching this so much. I could get so many doors open, we could never shut them until we left here till daylight tomorrow morning. So I'm going to open a few more doors on Saturday, but my goal is to learn to build your own little bank. And I'm going to show you various leveraging techniques with other investors and how to do this. Okay? There are a few of you that cannot come on Saturday, and I'm going to tell you about some classes, some advanced classes you can attend, because I have 2 or 3 of you that said, would you tell me just a little bit, because I can't come on Saturday. So I'm gonna, if you guys that are going to come on Saturday will spot me just a couple of minutes, I'm going to tell these other guys about, and then we'll talk a little bit more about Saturday. I have trained thousands of real estate investors how to buy notes. Okay? I think, far and away the best track record of any trainer in this business of training people how to buy real estate secured loans. In those thousands of people, there is a common thread. The common thread is this. For people to do this, they have to have knowledge, interest, and time. Most people at this point in the conversation have plenty of what? Interest. What they don't have is knowledge and time. And that's what Note School is going to show you. We're going to show you leveraging techniques for your money and leveraging techniques for your time. We're going to show you what we've learned over 35 years. I've personally closed over 40,000 notes. My executive team has closed over $3 billion in discounted mortgages. So one thing we have spent is a lot of this, learning how to do it. And we're going to show you what we've learned so that you can do it really efficiently. We have 2 classes on the subject. One class is on performing notes, the technique that I showed you of how to buy the whole note and sell part of the note to an investor and have very little money invested. There are a zillion different ways to structure the deal. Okay? So we have a class that teaches you structuring deals and buying seller finance notes and carving up cash flows and what to do with them. It's called Rich Rewards in Real Estate Notes. We have a live class. We're going to send you home with this book, which is a home study course book. So we have really 2 classes built into one on this subject. One's home study and one's going to be a live class. Most of the live class is going to relate to case studies and real examples of deals. Best way for you to remember it and learn it. The second class we have is going to be on buying defaulted notes. And take a wild guess, this is why it's named Big Money from Bad Debts. And this is a home study course again, and you're going to come to a live class, and we're just going to take real deals and bust them open and show them to you in different ways. So we have 2 different 3-day classes that you can come to, and we're going to send you home with a home study course, and we're going to allow you to bring, we're not going to just sell it to you at a discount because it's not going to cost you $2,000. We're going to allow you to bring a legitimate business partner, meaning that you have a common business and a common checking account together, or a family member. And I have a heart for you bringing a family member because my father-in-law taught me this business when I was 20 years old. I got my dad in the business. He was 68 years old. I could go on and on and on about what this has meant to my family to learn this business. So I have a heart for you bringing a family member and doing it. These home-based courses are broken into modules. It's just us teaching. This is the live classes that I used to teach, and I filmed them, and then we take a whole different set of case studies and facts, and then we bring those to a live event. So it just lets us pour more into your head more efficiently by sending you home with some home study courses that are going to be self-paced. The live classes that we do are all over the country all the time, and yes, there is one coming up in Charlotte, North Carolina. And they're all over the country all the time. About every 2 or 3 weeks, they're somewhere across the country, and we have a lot of classes, and you can see, and as you come, we'll have on Saturday, we'll look at these classes again and talk about them, okay? Let's talk about Saturday. This class that I do on Saturday, I call Golden Notes. Golden Notes is a 1-day class, and what we do in this 1-day class, did I get this right, JC? $29 for members, $49 for non-members. Did I say that right? If you buy it off the internet, it's going to be more. So it's more better if you buy it here. Okay? And what's the deal? I know there's a special. Remind me of what it is. Is it the first 15 that sign up? The first 15. Am I saying that right, JC?
Yeah, 15 sign up tonight on Saturday meeting, and also get 15 hours of body dose.
So this is unrelated to this training. It's just other training that you've done. Okay, so the first 15 that sign up are going to be able to get a bonus of some additional training that these guys have filmed that's really good stuff. What are we going to talk about on Saturday? Most of the things that have popped into your mind at this point, I'm going to go back and spend some time and talk about. I'm going to show you some real deals because people say it helps me to see what a real deal looks like. I'm going to show you a lot of those. I'm going to show you a lot of data and facts. I'm going to show you about building cash flows, and I'm going to talk about sourcing capital. And most importantly, I'm going to show you the art of creative financing. And I've given you a glimmer of what that could look like here tonight. Okay? I'm going to talk about retirement accounts, and I'm going to show you a lot of different examples of people that have bought assets in retirement accounts, and I'm also going to show you a lot of ways to do this in your personal business, earning upfront income and all of that and what it looks like. Okay? Now, I asked you to make a deal with me, and here's what I said. If you will hold your questions till the end, it'll let me finish on time, and as a result of that, I'll answer questions in the back. Now, I'm going to ask you to make one more deal with me, because if I don't make this part of the deal, as they say in Texas, this ain't my first rodeo. You got to let me get back there before I start answering questions, because somebody will stop me right here, and I'll have to claw my way to the back. So if you'll let me get to the back of the room, I'll answer questions. You guys are a fun audience. I love your town. I have so many friends and people that I really care about in Charlotte, and you live in a wonderful place, and I really, really thank you for letting me come and tell my story. Thank you guys very much.